Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining today's online seminar number 101. Today, I'd like to introduce Exploratory version 10. We released Exploratory version 10 last Thursday. This time, we have the signal and noise as a theme. So today is not just like introducing all the new features of Exploratory version 10, but also I like to talk about a little bit about this concept of the signal and noise, or at least the concept from our point of view. All right, let's get started. So my name is Kan Nishida, CEO at Exploratory. We started Exploratory 2016. Since then, we've been working on to democratize data science by providing the Exploratory as a software tool and also sharing our knowledge and skills through the seminars and the training. Our vision is data-informed decision-making. Data-informed decision-making is essential for making the world better. Therefore, our mission is to democratize data science. So in order to do it, we have the tool called Exploratory. Exploratory makes your data science work much more efficient and easier. Usually, data science workflow involves like data access, data wrangling, visualization, and analytics, and also communication piece as well. So let me just start from the data access. So Exploratory allows you to access to various types of data and quickly import. And once you import the data, it gives you the automatically created charts to give you the instant understanding of the summarized information. And then most of the time, the data is not in the form that you can easily visualize or analyze. So therefore, data wrangling is a core part of the Exploratory so that you can access to various types of data wrangling operations through the column header menu. And every single data wrangling operation will be recorded as a data wrangling steps, which you can manage and update in a very manageable way. And also reproducible way. And also, once your data is ready, then you can visualize with various chart types. To visualize summary data or time series, variance, correlation, uncertainty, geolocation data, and text data as well. And then you want to act, sometimes visualization is not enough. So that's where like statistics and machine learning algorithm coming in to help you to find the patterns and the trend in that data that just the visualization cannot discover. So Exploratory provides various type of algorithms that will automatically generate a series of the chart visualizations. So it makes it easier to use and easier to interpret the output of the models and algorithms. Once you gain the insights from the data, and then you want to create a dashboard to share your insights in the visualization and the charts. Also, like if you define the metrics for your business, then to track, then you can actually have all your metrics in one place, and then you can schedule and automate that report generation at the server. You can also create a notes in Exploratory where you can keep track what you're finding. You define your metrics, you define your hypothesis. You want to communicate what you find from your data with other folks in your team. Okay, so that's really the Exploratory main functionality. All right, that's enough for the Exploratory introduction. So let's get started. Today's seminar, Exploratory version 10. I'd like to introduce all the new features or most exciting new features. And also to this time, like we have the theme called signal and noise. So I want to talk a little bit about this theme as well. So let's get started. T.S. Eliot, probably like many of you know, the great author and a poet, he said, this is like a long time ago, old quote, but where is all the knowledge we lost with information? I think this is really still, standing today with this day and age. Like it's much easier to access data, collect the data, and even import the data. But especially this age of like internet, digital, and big data era. However, if you ask the question, are you getting more knowledge than before? I think that's a really tough, tricky question. So Edward Deming, who is a master or god of the statistical control, quality control for like manufacturing, the production, and so on. Once he said the essence of doing business is making predictions. And predictions require knowledge. So what is the knowledge? I think that's the key question. And then according to him, or if you've ever been in a science field, I think the knowledge is probably, you agree, is that does it help you predict? If it doesn't, that's not knowledge, that's just information. But if it helps you to predict something, then that's a knowledge. So that, having said that, knowledge is something about the causal relationship. If you do X, and you're going to get Y. So you live in the present, and you take certain action, then you get certain result. But there are a couple of actions you can take. Let's say that you want to increase the sales, you want to increase the signups on your website or something like that. Then you can do a couple of different things. And then some action will lead to the result that you want, but some actions probably not. So how are you going to know which action to take? So that's where the knowledge comes in. And how you get the knowledge, many times or most of the time, like people use sort of like a historical experience or personal experience. Last time I did this and this happened, so I'm going to do that again. Or last time I did this and this happened, I don't want that, so I'm not going to do that again, right? Or sometimes people learn from like other people's experience, reading books, going to the seminar, talking to other people. Either way is the experience from the past. But if you are here in this seminar, probably like you want to use the data. Data will give you more objective idea, like objectivity, right? So instead of like just reading just one document or one book or something like that, how can you learn from the past experience in a more objective way? That's where the data comes in. So data is always about the past. You collect the data, right? And then if you have that, and how can you gain the knowledge from that data? And again, here, the kind of knowledge we are talking about is if you do X and you're going to get Y. So you get the data and then you visualize, creating a chart. And then you expect something like this. So, hey, you know what? Like, it looks like the sales is going up, or it looks like the number of the signups going increasing. So therefore, what we are doing is working, right? Or you have two groups, let's say like a blue group and an orange group or something. And then if you do that particular action, let's say like you change the color of the button in one country, and then but the other other countries you didn't do that, and then the one that you actually take the actions, sales is increasing, but the other sales is not actually going down. Then you can know, okay, maybe like we should change the color, maybe like we give it a discount, maybe we should take this kind of advertisement or something like that. But in reality, let's say that you go to Google Analytics, so you just go to whatever the database, you pull up the data and then bring it into the Exploratory, whatever the tool you have, and then you visualize and you get something like this. So where is the signal? Right. So basically, like if this one is going up, and then it's easy, like, hey, it's going up. Hey, what we are doing is great. If it's going down, hey, it's going down. So what we are doing is actually not working, right? But usually it is going ups and downs, and then you get kind of confused. Even though you have the data, like I'm not sure, like, hey, what kind of decision I should make? Maybe should we wait for long enough so that we're gonna start seeing like going up all the way or going down all the down? We don't know. It's just all you see is the ups and downs. So let's say, you know what, we have to make certain decisions. So therefore, like, okay, what is the average or mean? This is a red line. And then, you know what, this month is better than the average. So therefore, something's working. So, hey, good job. Hey, this month you get like, let's say like number of the signups is 40, which is average is 35. So like we get increase of like 5. So good job. So whatever the things we're doing is working. However, average is the average, right? By definition, it's basically in the center. So that means opposite side, you're gonna have as many value or points that goes down than less than the average. So in that case, if you encounter something like this, then you basically say, hey, something's not working. If you have a boss who doesn't know how to read the data, he's going to tell you, or she's going to tell you, hey, what the hell are you doing, right? So, and then by long term, if you look at it, basically, if you compare against the average, it's always basically half of the time it's good, half of the time it's not good. And this is not going to help you make any certain decision, or it doesn't give you any knowledge that help you to gain knowledge or help you to predict the, whatever the outcome based on your actions. So then, hey, you know what? Like, why don't we just compare something else? How about the last period? This is the most companies, most businesses do. Any type of the numbers the company or business announce, it's always compared to the last period. It could be last month, last year, last same month in the last year, whatever that could be. Hey, you know what? 10% up, 20% down, or that kind of stuff, right? So that means, let's say that you compare against the last month, right? And this is the monthly number of signups trend. And then whatever the points that is better than the last month or last period, then it's considered as good, right? So like, hey, you know what, 10% up. So like we're doing good. And you can talk many things that are, whatever the, things that you think is helping, right? But the problem is, again, in reality, data goes ups and downs. Most of the chart you see. So that means compared to the last month, there are some months is actually you have the less than the previous months. That means, again, same thing, the comparing against the average. This too will give you sometimes good, sometimes not. Again, it doesn't help you to predict your outcome, right? So you get kind of confused. What are you supposed to do? You've been doing a bunch of things to improve your business, but by looking at the data, that doesn't tell you whatever the thing you're doing is working or not working. And then this will actually give you only the stress, because half of the time you guys are yelling at each other, or somebody might be yelling at you. So that what is going to create is that nobody wants to keep looking at the data anymore, because it doesn't help you. It doesn't give you any knowledge that you need to run your business. So the two biggest sins when you look at the data is, number one, you took actions because you thought it was signal, but it was not. So let's say like the data going ups and downs, and again, hey, you know what, compared to last month, it's actually 10% down. What is going on? That you circle around, running around of trying to find the reason, like why these things are not the way you thought was going to be. So you're gonna trying to find the reason. Most of the time, you can't even find a particular reason why this month's sales or sign up or conversion rate is going down. But your boss is asking what is going on. So you end up like trying to find whatever the reason. And then you might take even actions to mitigate on that. Then whatever the action you take sometimes cause worse consequence. So it's actually better than worse than not doing anything. But you feel like you have to do anything, right? So the second thing is you didn't take actions because you didn't think it was signal, but it was. After several months or whatever the period, you're looking at the data, and then basically you realize, what, it's going ups and downs. It's just a variation, right? Then like you get so used to not doing anything, just looking at the data. Hey, you know what? Like, we still don't know. Let's wait for another couple months or something like that. But there might be signal. You just don't know how to find the signal. But by the time you realize the obvious signal, then might be too late. What if that signal is actually telling you things are going bad, but you don't know? You thought it's just like a regular random variation or something, right? So the really key for the data analysis, or even when it comes to using the data in order to improve your business, is to how can we find signals out of noise, or noise meaning this kind of ups and downs or variation. That's where this XmR chart comes in. So this is the biggest and the most exciting feature that comes with the version, Exploratory version 10. So XmR chart, let me just explain briefly. In this seminar today, I have only limited time to introduce all the new features. So I'm going to just show you just sort of a highlight, a brief idea of this XmR chart. But I'm planning to do more detailed seminar, maybe like the week after next week or something like that. But anyway, so the XmR chart, basically it consists with two things. One is X, another one is MR. X is about, this X is meaning like it can be anything, whatever the thing that you're tracking or you want to know. So let's say this can be the signups, conversion rate, churn rate, or sales, whatever the numbers you're looking for. Okay, you're monitoring. And the MR stands for like moving range. That means it's actually just a difference compared to, from the previous period. So if you're looking at the monthly data and it's just a difference between this month and the last month, or last month and the month before. But in absolute values, so there's no negative. So even though the value goes down, but if the 20, 20 is the value, negative value go down, but we calculate it as a 20. So it's an absolute of moving, sort of like a difference compared to the previous month or previous period. Okay, so this chart is historically, as some people might have heard of it, as part of the control chart. This is like if you're familiar with the statistical quality control field or a world of Six Sigma, you might heard of something like this, or like you might have heard as a process behavior chart. So this one was invented like a long time ago. It was like the original control chart was invented in 1920. This particular version, which is as a part of this like a whole family of the control chart, XmR chart was invented around 1940 by Walter Shewhart. And then later, it was not really mentioned, especially in the huge movement of like a statistical control around the manufacturing, the production in Japan, that where like Edward Deming became so famous of the guru of like quality control of the manufacturing world. But it was not really mentioned. But somehow 1980s, Edward Deming started hearing this word XmR chart. And that's where Donald Wheeler and Edward Deming rediscovered this XmR chart. And then they realized this chart actually can take care. It's more appropriate for dealing with most of the operational and business data. So therefore, since then, they start promoting widely. So just this part is sort of like there are a bunch of just several different variations of the control chart, but all the concepts are basically the same. It's just that XmR chart is really sort of like can be used for like various different types of data, and also has a slightly different way of calculating compared to other control charts. But anyway, so the main concept is here, the routine variation. So that chart this blue line is like, let's say like sign up, like monthly signups, okay? And then it's going up and downs. And then like the central line is the average. And then the top and the bottom, there are two red lines. These are something called control limit. And any data points within this control limit is considered as a routine variation. Meaning it's just the expected variation. Therefore, if it goes up and down, there's nothing you need to take as an action. You don't even have to explain anything. It's just that like a normal, regular routine variation. This is called common cause, according to Walter Shewhart. But sometimes the value goes outside of this sort of control limit. That's called special variation. And that's where you want to pay attention. That's something that comes from some kind of like an exceptional thing happen in the process, in your business process. So that's basically the signal. And then common variation is the noise. And you want to pay attention to special variation. And that's where like you want to think like, hey, what is going on in your business? Maybe like something's started working, something, somebody changed it, or maybe some kind of random thing, the system has some error or something like that. It can be anything, but this is a signal that you might have something in the change in your process. So why we can find something like this? So how it works, what the XmR chart. So again, X is the one that, it can be anything, right? Like they say sign-ups or conversion rate or whatever the thing is. And MR is a moving range. That's the difference between the current and the previous, the difference between two periods. Okay, so let's look at the X. And then first, like you get the average line, that's the center line, right? And then, so for example, like left-hand side, I have all the data and calculate the mean, and then draw that red line. And the next one is the MR. Again, moving range is the calculation difference between two data points, two periods. And then you calculate the mean of the moving range. And that's where the red line at the bottom chart. Okay, and then now how we get this control limit? Well, that control limit comes from this formula, mean X plus minus 3 times mean MR. So basically, this mean MR is approximation of standard deviation. So if you're familiar with the statistics, standard deviation is like basically square root of the variance. But here is basically the same concept. What's the average? What's the mean of the variance, right? So this one, like they used it this way as the approximation of the standard deviation. And then when you multiply 3, that's the 3 standard deviation. And that's why like you sometimes hear like 6 sigma, which is basically plus minus 3, which is like 6. So therefore like 6 sigma. So this part is a 3 sigma standard deviation. Okay. But here's a problem. This mean MR part is that like that's the approximation of the standard deviation. But however, there is something called bias, because there's a two data points, you just kind of different, you calculate a difference. So therefore, you want to consider this something called bias correction constant. And bias correction constant has already defined based on the sample size. So in this case, you're basically calculating 2 data points. Every single value is a difference between the 2 data points. Therefore, N is 2, and then you get the D2 is 1.1284. So therefore, you want to divide by the 1.1284 over the mean MR divided by 1.1284. So that means you calculate in this manner. It's essentially, it becomes 3 divided by 1.1284 will become 2.66. Therefore, control limit of the X, let's say the sign-ups or like sales or whatever, is simply you multiply 2.66 to the mean of moving range. Okay, so this 2.66, this is a little bit detail, but it's essentially you want to use this constant called 2.66, and then you can get this control limit. So in the previous example, we get the 40.27 as the mean of X, and then 15.14 as the mean of MR or moving range. Put those two numbers in the formula, and then you can calculate the control limit. In this case, mean of X is 40.27, and plus minus this time happen to be the exact same number, about 40.27 plus minus. That means the control limit range is between 0 and 80.54. So here it is, like we have that control limit for the X. You can calculate that moving range for the control limit for moving range as well. But I'm going to just skip that detail here. So now, once you know that, so this is you can get the XmR chart. You know that how it's calculated. You know that how you can use, but how you interpret the result. The three rules. The basic one is the one I already talked about. So wherever the data points that goes outside the control limit, that's where that's called a special cause or special variation. That's where you want to pay attention. You want to take some actions. And then because this is a 3 sigma, so the probability of having the value outside of this range is about 99%. Let's say about 1% or less than 1%. Depends on the sort of underlying probability distribution. But by the way, this thing can deal with any type of probability distribution. More precisely, it doesn't really consider any particular probability distribution. So your data doesn't have to be in a normal distribution or any particular distribution. It just works for be able to deal with any type of sort of a data processing. Okay. But anyway, so it goes outside the control limit. So that's where we want to pay attention. Number two, rule 2 is something called 3 out of 4 consecutive points are closer to the limit than the center line. So when you see this dotted line at the center between the mean and the control limit, upper limit, and then when you have any consecutive 4 data points, and out of which, when you have 3 are closer to the limit rather than the mean, that's when you want to pay attention. This one is less significant signal than the one that is outside the limit, but this indicates your data start showing the different trend than the normal or routine trend. And that's where you want to also pay attention to. Maybe things start changing, meaning you start having some kind of some changes in the process. And that's why this new process or update process start producing different variation compared to before. Okay, so this doesn't have to be only the upper part, even the lower part as well. Then the last not least is the rule number 3, which is something called sometimes a random 8. So 8 consecutive data points are in the same side from the mean. So either above the mean or below the mean, either way, but somehow 8 consecutive points are only in one side. And that also indicates your process having a change. Therefore, the new updated or changed process start producing the data will show you different variations. So these are the 3 interpretation rules. Okay. So now that we know how to make decisions or how to interpret this data with this XmR chart, how you can create this XmR chart in Exploratory. So it's pretty simple. When you go to the Exploratory, so this chart, I've already created it as a sign-up, right? And then x-axis is the date, and the y-axis is the number of the sign-ups. So we have different data points. So first thing you want to do is you want to draw the reference line, which you can access to reference line from the y-axis menu. And then you select the mean or average. And at this point, you click on the apply button, then you get the reference line, like a mean reference line. And then now, next one, you want to change the color to, let's say, you can change the color to make it easier to see. This is not necessary as part of creating an XmR chart, but just for more a visual thing. But the important thing here, this is what we have added under the range type. Now we have 2 things: the control limit X, control limit MR. This time, what we are looking at, this is the X. So I'm going to select control limit X and click on the apply button. Now, you see these 2 limits, upper limits and lower limits. And as you see, most of the data is within this control limit. However, the last data point is outside. So this is actually the signal. And this one, that makes basically, you want to find why you get this data. Okay. So that's very simple way to creating the XmR chart, X part of the XmR chart. How about the MR part of the XmR chart? Well, you can actually create it here. So let's add another y-axis. So I'm going to select the same variable, again, sign up B, but this time I want to create the moving range. So the calculation between two data points, right? Like a difference from previous period. So from the menu, I'm going to select under the quick window calculation, difference from previous. If I select this one, now this orange color is showing you the difference between a given period and the period before. So now you remember the moving range has to be just a positive or absolute value. So this one is going up and down, the original data. So therefore, sometimes minus, sometimes plus. I want all these data points to be plus. So how can you do that? So you go to the window calculation property, and then there's a checkbox. This is also new in this version 10. Calculate as absolute values, and click apply. And then now all the moving range point is a plus or positive side. Okay, so we get that MR part. But now it's kind of like tricky because you see those two lines within one chart. I want to separate that. So you can use a repeat by and then select each y-axis. That means this y1 and y2 axis will be shown in two different charts. And I'm gonna stack them up together. So like I'm gonna select the number of columns to be 1. So now the above chart is X, lower chart is the MR or moving range. And then like I can actually change this one, show this one the control limit as well. So for the second y-axis from the menu, I can select the reference line. And the reference line type, again, select the mean as a center line. But for this, I want to show the control limit. But this time, you want to select the MR of the control limit because this is the moving range. And which basically the constant is different. You remember, constant for the X is 2.66. For the MR is 3.269. So like I'm going to use that default value. And then now this one, now I see in a kind of a gray background. You can control how you want to show that. So for example, you don't want to show the background color or you want to change the color. You can change from this property as well. Okay, so that's a quick nutshell of what is the XmR chart, why you want that, how you want to use it, and how you can create in Exploratory. Okay, so let's move on to the other features of Exploratory version 10. Okay, so we have added a bunch of other features as well. So one of the things is a number. Number has been there, but what we did was this, you see this like a submetric right underneath the main numbers. So that's the part we added in this release. This one is also really cool. So when you want to track, for example, this one, like we are looking at the signups, but first thing you want to do, even before the chart, is to define the metric, right? What is you're monitoring? What is the number that will tell you your business is doing good or not, right? So that metric. And then so here I created it for the sales data. This is like a total sales or something like that. Version 9, the previous version, we added something called show difference, right? So by using this, you can calculate the difference between this period and last period or the same months in the last year and so on. But we enhanced it in a very nice way. So you go to the show difference and open this dialog. So same thing. So for example, I'm going to select aggregate by default date unit. And then now, like if you have the date or project CT column, it'll automatically assign. And then like I want to actually I want to know the monthly sales, or weekly or whatever this thing is, right? And then compare to, what are you comparing to? Well, I want to compare to the last month, or how about 1 year ago this time. So if I click on preview at this point, this chart, the bottom chart, will tell you what is the base value, what are you comparing against? And then like, you get this number here. So first, this 229,000, this one is called main metric, which is like you can choose which one to show. In this case, it is showing the last period value, which means this blue colored bar number. Okay. And then the submetric is the one, this is a new feature that at the kind of below of the main metric. So it says 51,000 or something like that. That's the diff. So compared to between this blue and red color, you can actually change submetric to something else. Instead of the actual difference value, you might want to show that like a percent difference, right? So if you click on that, now it says almost 30%, which is that difference between these and then what's the percentage of this red color. Okay, so this way you can see, okay, this number is that this month's sales is $229,000, but also you can know, oh, it's actually 30% increase compared to the last year in the same period. And then you can click OK, and then you get this number. Once you have this, and then you can have like a dashboard, and then you can include this type of the metric. I've already included it. And then if you go to the round bottom, and then you get the main metric and the submetric all run together. Okay. And by the way, this centerpiece is the XmR chart that I just talked about. Okay. So now, so this dashboard will help you not just give you the numbers or whatever the metrics numbers you're looking at, but also gives you the context by providing this type of the percent change. But also, you know that now you know that there's a variance, a variation in your data. So therefore, you want to actually use chart like XmR chart to see if the difference is something to you pay attention, or maybe you don't even have to think about much, right? Another thing is XmR chart is not the only way to find a signal. Another way is to simply compare to the trend of the last year. For example, this left-hand side chart, this one is showing the sales in the blue color, but also the gray color is showing you the last year's sales and then aligned by the months. So for example, here, October, sales of this year, in this case, 2023, but 181,000. But then the year before, and the same period, in this case, October, is 118. So therefore, every single month, your data goes up and down, but you don't have to react by these ups and downs. Instead, you can bring the last year as a context to see what does that mean. Like, should you react the ups or downs, or actually it's every year the October goes down. So you probably sort of like expect it. But the key question is, and overall, you're actually going increase in trend or not. So this chart will really help you to find the signal in a different way. And then in this release, we can create, enhance the chart to be able to draw that type of line very easily. So here, the sales line, this is actually starting from 2020 to 2023 December. So it's almost like 4 years. And then now, like, I want to show the year before trend reference line. So from y-axis menu, there's a reference line. And then here's a reference line. And then here's a property. And then like what you can do is you want to show this period ago. And then like you can select the, hey, like what is the period unit? In this case, I want to do the 1 year ago. So like a period unit is year, and the period size default is 1. That means 1 year ago. So that's perfect. So I'm going to click on apply. Now this dark gray colored line, that is showing you the exact year before on the same months. Okay, so now here's that. So now like we have the 4 years of data and then 3 years of the last year data. Sometimes you want to actually track only like the last 12 months, right? And in that case, if you use this filter, this is like a chart filter, then it limits the data before you calculate this like a period ago, that type of calculation. That means if you give the data of the only last 12 months of data to the chart cannot give you or calculate the year before because there's no such data. So what do? Well, there is the menu, the limit values for that x-axis. think of it, this is a sort of like a filter after that result or after the fact, right? So this limit value is that whole data was given to chart, and then the chart do like this reference line, whatever the calculation. And then you can limit what are the x-axis data points you want to show. So if you go to limit values, and then you have the couple options, and here, let's say relative date filter, when you select it, and then here's a data type one, different options. In this case, what I want to do is data's last N years. In this case, this is not like a latest data up to today. If you have the data up to today, you might want to do like recent Y years or recent Y months or something like that. But in this case, my data stops at the end of the 2023. So therefore, I want to select the data as the last N years. And if I select this one as 1, then that means last 1 year from the end of the data. So if I click apply, here, what we are looking at is a 12 months of the data. Okay, and then gray line, again, this is the data the year before. So blue line is the 2023, the gray line is actually 2022, but you are actually comparing aligned with months. So therefore, it gives you more like a context of like interpreting this sales numbers trend. Okay, so this one is also like another powerful feature to help you sort of like contextualize the data or the trend in your data. Okay, so another thing is that trend line base period, and this one is actually pretty cool. Like I wanted to show you by using the chart. So for example, I have which data? Employment. Oh, this is perfect. So this is the employment data in the United States. And I have this data, the purple line is showing the foreign born, meaning is the immigrant folks, right? Like they were born in the outside country, but came to the United States and get the job. And the green line is the native born, meaning like Americans. These are the people who were born in this country. And then like I have the raw data, but I wanted to see what's the percent change from the 2010, like how much increase that now jobs. So for example, by looking at this chart, so foreign born is a purple color. So compared to 2010, their jobs and the increase are pretty dramatically much higher than the American people. Okay, but the trend changed after the COVID, right? You remember COVID? After that, all the sudden job, many of the business had to close or shut down, so the job went down. So, and then like after that, economies start recover by all the money. So therefore, both of them start increasing. But when I look at this data, I have one question. If the trend of that, whatever the job employment numbers before the COVID continue, where we would be. And then I want to do that for the foreign born and the native born. And then I can say, oh, you know what? Somehow the COVID hit the economy or like employment market, but it recovered to the previous level. If we recover to the previous level means like the same number, that's not really recovery, right? Because it should be increasing both of them. But the question is, are we back on track in terms of like, yearly or like what monthly increase or monthly or weekly increase, whatever. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to draw the trend line, okay, for both native born and foreign born. So if let's say like we pick foreign born, this is the purple color, I'm going to start with that. So let's say here's a trend line. And then, for example, like a different option, I'm going to show like a straight line because this seems to be like a pretty simple data. So if I select the linear, and this is what is going to happen, right? So this trend line or straight line basically try to go through in the middle of every single purple data points or foreign born employment numbers. Okay, so that means this line goes kind of towards to like a lower than this peak of the before the COVID. That's because this COVID time between these during the 2 years, the employment that went down. So therefore, this trend line went down. And then we don't know, it looks like by looking at this, oh, you know what, right now, the foreign bonds employment is way higher than the trend. But this kind of this trend line is distorted by this kind of like going down. So what I wanted to do is I want to calculate this trend based on from 2010 to 2020 or before COVID. And then like I want to compare that trend after the COVID or current against that trend. You know what I mean? So let's say here, base data range, here, this is a new functionality. And I can set, like, for example, first N years, or I can particularly, define like which date or something like that. But in this case, it's pretty simple. The first N years from 2010 to 2020, it's about 10 years. So I'm going to set like a 10 years as a value and click apply button. And did you see what just happened? Here, the straight line is really going along, aligned with the these period of data. And then you see the straight line. But after the 2020, now the line becomes dotted line. And that will show you which period is the base data to calculate this linear trend line. Okay. And this one helps me understand, okay, so now the employment change, percent difference change from 2010 is actually pretty much get back on track for the foreign born or immigrants. But how about the Americans? This is the green line. So I'm going to do the same thing for that green line and go to the trend line and then type and select the linear. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Base data range. This one is like a first 10 years. And I'm going to click on apply. And then here it is. So now I can see this green line. So if the trend will continue as same as the before the COVID, we would be here. But somehow the current American born employment is not reaching to that trend. So therefore, there's some kind of a difference between the immigrants and the Americans. This one is so this type of data or visualization will really help you to incorporate the context of the past trend. And sometimes, especially something like a COVID trend, very different. And you don't want to include that particular points in the data to calculate the trend. So this will help you address that problem. Okay. So other things, I'm going to just go with that here. So we added the sorting for repeat by. What that means, when you have the repeat by, you can create multiple charts. And when you have the multiple charts, one thing you want to do right now before version 10 is that all the charts are sorted by alphabetically. But now with this version 10, you can sort them based on the y-axis numbers. It can be the y-axis mean or sum, or maybe the last value, whatever that could be. Okay, so this one is showing unemployment trend for all the countries. And then you can see like, okay, the Spain's unemployment rate is pretty high as compared to Japan, which is the right-hand side bottom. And then obviously this way, it's very easy to understand like the sort of the trend across the countries as compared to if you get these charts in sorted by alphabetically by the countries name, then it doesn't really give you any idea. But you can now sort it. Okay. Another thing is that we added the sorting for the color as well. Well, we had sort of like sorting before, but now you can use aggregate function. So this is particularly convenient when you want to sort you see the right-hand side, there's the legend, and then you have a bunch of like 10 countries or so, right? And then now you can sort this. Before you could sort it alphabetically, and then, or you could sort some sort of like y-axis by. But now you can actually use a sum or mean or maybe like a last value. So in this particular screenshot, you see the line of the sorting of the countries are done based on the very right side of the data points. So therefore, the Spain is at the top, Sweden at the second, France is the third. That's because all those colored lines at the end in that order. Okay, so now like you can sort the color as much easier as well. So another thing, if you happen to be using pivot table, this is here the good news, not just pivot table, there's a summarized table and also the table, just a regular table as well. We support finally the text wrap. So when you have the long column header text, and then now you can choose to do either do the text wrap, or if you don't want to do the text wrap, the default is like you get default is now the text wrap. If you don't do the text wrap, then you're gonna see like a dot 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 when you have like let's say like 100 characters or something like that. Or you can do another setting under the property inside the property. There's a section called display. You can just expand the column size, column width to include entire text of your column header or column name as well, or variable name as well. Okay, so that's the pivot table. And here's another one. This is a table view. You know the table view in Exploratory, which is basically here, this table view. And then this number, it turned out, I live in the United States, I came from Japan, both countries happen to be using 1,000 separator as a comma, and then decimal digit as a dot. But when you go to Europe or other continents, sometimes those are different. And then now like you can actually change it from the system setting and then go here under the general. And then here is that where, okay, 1,000 separator for table view, decimal separator for table view. So you can change it. Let's say like you might want to do the space for the 1,000 separator and then dot, comma for the decimal separator or something like that. And this will reflect in every single table view in your Exploratory. Okay. You might want to extend that to like a different charts. That's something that we're working on. That's going to come in a future release. But for now, the table view, you can actually configure that number formatting. Okay. So one last thing is here, let's say note. Okay. I'm going to open the note, and the note is a great tool where you can actually, create the stories, or you can write what you have found from your data so that you can share with others your insights you discover in the data and so on in a very flexible for an intuitive, interactive format. So now here is a note, and then you can click on a Command F or Control F, depends on the platform, PC, Windows or Mac. Or you can click on simply this search icon. And then this will give you this text search thing. Okay. And then here, kind of from here is very typical. And, I don't really need to explain. Probably you already know how, I expect how it works, but you can actually type to find the word. And then if you like, you can actually replace it as well. And then you can have this like a case sensitive search. So that means I don't have to type like S as uppercase. You can just type like a small s. Right now is a case sensitive. Or if I do that a case match, then the uppercase S will be ignored and so on. Okay, so that's the improvement for that note editor. And with that, that's actually pretty much it for version 10 new feature. So when is available? So schedule, export to desktop, and good news is export to public edition, both of them available today. So when you go to Exploratory website, you can find a download menu and then go to export to desktop, and then you can click on the download button to download. Or you can click on the release notes to see all the new features, enhancements, and bug fixes as well. And if you happen to be Exploratory server users or customers, Exploratory server is where you can not just publish and share your contents, but also you can automate your report generation, such as note or dashboard or chart, and sometimes even data itself by using the scheduling. And then if you have the Exploratory server to yourself. Let's say like typically like you can use Exploratory servers called shared instance, which is exploratory.io. So everybody have that, like any Exploratory user have that. But sometimes you want to have to yourself, separated environment so that you can guarantee the performance and also you can have the administration access. Then you want to have like a hosted environment, which we host for you, but you have the full admin capability. Or you want to actually install yourself on your server, then you can have the on-prem version. Either way, if you want to know more detail, you go to our website and Exploratory server. And for that Exploratory server shared environment, if you happen to be just Exploratory desktop users, then you can publish and you can schedule, and then you can make, for example, XmR chart works there as well. But if you happen to be the hosted customers or on-prem customers, we are releasing the version 10 server, Exploratory server version 10 in mid-June, middle of this month. So stay tuned for update. Okay. So that's it. So in this version 10, we worked on to help you being able to easily find signals out of noisy data. I think that's really the key to when it comes to using the data to improve your business. So hope you're gonna like it and then try and then let us know if you have any feedback. All right. So thank you for watching. And as always, if you have any feedback or questions or anything you want to talk about, please feel free to reach out to me at tan@exploratory.io. And also we have the Twitter account, Exploratory, or X account, Exploratory Data. So please follow for any updates and news. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining. And hope you're going to upgrade and enjoy version 10.